You're not just going to wake up one day from fasting and be like, oh, I'm hungry. And when I hear people say, oh, well, I'm not hungry in the morning, I'm like, of course you're not. You haven't had breakfast in 5 years. We got to start. Well, what should I have? What can we start with? Can we start with the Greek yogurt? Well, it's dairy. Is that okay? It's okay for you. You said you liked it. Maybe a protein shake with some berries in it.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that enough? Probably not in the long run, but let's start working our way up. And I've really noticed that once we start getting people to their maintenance level of calories or their total daily energy expenditure, it could take months.
Yeah.
But when we get them there, their body composition drastically improves. But you're not going to take someone who's consuming 1,400 calories a day and they're like, oh, I want to lose weight. And you're like, okay, let's drop to 1,200. Like it doesn't work that way. Like we all have a maintenance level of calories. And if we're in a deficit all the time, I think it's dangerous. I think it's irresponsible. And when coaches are out there and they're like, well, you need to be in a deficit to change body composition, that's false.
A very special thank you to today's sponsor, which is Timeline Nutrition. So as we age, the body becomes less efficient in many ways. Our brain health declines and the health of our mitochondria deteriorates. If you were listening to last week's episode with Chris Palmer, you would have heard us speak about metabolic dysfunction being the root cause of mental disorders. What's the root cause of metabolic dysfunction? Insufficient mitochondria. So the mitochondria are the energy generating components in our body, and they become damaged as we get older, and it makes it harder for us to produce energy. And not just that, when we're stressed, sleep deprived, having a poor diet, we also damage and kill off these mitochondria. Mitopure by Timeline Nutrition contains a critical nutrient. It's urolithin A. Urolithin A is a postbiotic that literally upgrades your body's cellular power grid, giving you the energy you need to optimize. And you know what the best part is? Mitopure stimulates the mitochondrial renewal process to protect cells from age-associated decline. You can use Mitopure in your morning smoothie or stir it in with water. So if you guys want to check this out and you want to upgrade your performance and take your health to the next level, you can save 10% off with my code, which is NEURO. Just head on over to timelinenutrition.com/neuro and try it out for yourself. Try it for a month and see what the effects are.
Don Saladino, welcome to the Neuro Experience.
Excited to be on. Thank you.
I'm very much looking forward to speaking with you.
Me too.
And we're going to talk about all things. I actually, instead of touching on the questions I have regarding fitness, health, bodybuilding, all these stars that you train, I want to understand your background, because we've been talking for the past half an hour, and you said you always knew that you were going to get into fitness.
Always. Yeah. I mean, listen, my fitness journey, I think, started for me when I was in the second grade, which sounds kind of funny, but I had a bad hearing problem. I have a stuttering problem that probably still exists at times, and whatever, you learn to embrace it. But I think at that time when I was thinking about it as something that was so bad and I was just so upset, probably ended up being one of the biggest blessings in my life, because it really pushed me in a direction to chase sports and chase, the human body, and chase, understanding, it on a much deeper level than just looking good with your shirt off. So I ended up going to college, played Division I college baseball, and throughout playing, and I had a very successful 4 years where I went and I loved it. But I think about halfway through, I started realizing that my focus was like, I was studying business, I was getting my degree in business, but I could not stop reading and I could not wait to train. And it became somewhat of an obsession. And when I graduated, I remember it was 1999. I didn't really know about trainers at the time. And I heard about it, but never really thought it was something I could make a living doing.
Like thinking I can train other people.
I didn't even really think of it. It was almost brought up to me by my mom, because I was thinking about getting into like law enforcement, anything where I could be physical. And she's like, well, why don't you be one of these trainers? And I was like, do they make money? And she looked at me and she gave me the best advice I've ever received in my life. She's like, go after your passion, go after what you love. You've always been successful at the things you've done. You'll figure it out. And I did that. And I think back in 99, no one would have been able to map out this path I've been on. No one would have been able to, understand that, there is a digital space. There was no digital space in 1999. The web was just something that was new.
Yeah.
Paid advertising, no one knew about that. Selling online programs, no one knew about that. Zoom calls, podcasts never existed. Like that stuff didn't exist. So at that point, I became a trainer. Went off, worked at a big box gym in New York City, stayed for about a year, left, opened my own one-on-one training business. But I was very entrepreneurial. I grew up, working in a catering hall. And at a very young age, I was sweeping floors and waitering tables. And I did that for about 10 years. And I really understood what the service business was all about. From there, I realized that the only thing to do that would be up from training would be owning your own gym. It's like that was the ultimate. So I was a good relationship people. I went out, I raised capital. I raised $5 million.
No way.
Yeah, I raised that in my mid-20s.
Wow.
And I learned
just from private investors.
Private people. I mean, I went to family. I went to anyone I can get money from and raised that money. And I learned about Manhattan real estate. And I opened my first club in 2005, which was called Drive 495. It was a golf fitness performance facility. My brother was a professional golfer, turned back amateur, very good reputation in the golf world. And I went through all my Titleist Performance Institute training. I was the first graduating class back, whatever it was, 18 years ago. And we started this whole golf fitness program in my club. And, that obviously evolved. We had to go through 2007, 2008 when Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns, ended up fizzling out. I'll put it very lightly. And we had a big corporate a corporate spending part of our business where these companies would go in, they'd do corporate events, they'd get assessed, and we were making really good money doing that. And that just suddenly vanished. So at that point, I realized what real pressure was. I was probably burning about $100,000 a month for about a year.
And that's overheads.
Overhead, you lost a big part of your business.
Yeah.
I mean, my rent, my final year at that club was about $750,000. My overhead was $2 million a year just to keep the lights on. And
well, that is Manhattan real estate.
Manhattan real estate.
Then my parents always say to me, Louisa, why don't you buy an apartment in Manhattan? I'm like, just calm down. You don't understand.
New York's different. New York's different. And I'm not saying that to devalue anyone anywhere else. I mean, part of the reason why I did it in New York is that's where I'm from. But, Frank Sinatra said it, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. So understanding that element of business and that brick and mortar part of, what I went into, I think was something I would never go back and want to take away. I then opened my second club, Drive 443, which is a little bit more revolved around group training. In between that, though, I had an idea to get into the app space. And this was at the time where no one really knew what apps were. So I went to a major agency and I partnered up with professional athletes, Dwayne Wade, Adrian Peterson, and Ernie Els. And I started a company called Driven Apps. And this was like an MTV Cribs around the athlete. It was a brilliant idea.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Fast forwarded. How does somebody just get Dwayne Wade on board?
I was a people person. I'm like the ultimate connector. I mean, in my club, I was around some pretty special people who had some pretty incredible connections and they believed in me. So I think connecting the dots was something that probably became one of my strong suits. And I think putting that part together, I to be honest with you, I probably raised the money in about a week. I had to raise about $1.3 million. I did that, I think, in about 5 days. And then connecting the dots for these deals it seemed like a great idea at the time, right? We crushed it out of the gate. I mean, it was something that was, you're sitting there going, oh my God, this is it. Like this is, we just hit a grand slam. And we went to number one in the App Store in 2 of the 4 apps. We actually had a 4th app. It was more of a generalized fitness app. And then at a certain point, we just saw it begin to decline. And at the time, you're pulling your hair out trying to figure out why, to then realize it was a magic word. And that word was engagement. And that's pretty much what social media became at that point, because you can do a deal with some of the biggest Hollywood celebrities. It doesn't matter. I have big companies now call me because I was at the forefront of this and they're like, oh, we're trying to do a deal with this individual or this athlete. How should we structure it? And I'll sit there and I'll advise them on how to structure it. But one of the first points that I listen to where I'm immediately like back out is when they're trying to put structure around a posting schedule.
Yeah.
So this is normally a terrible sign for me that they don't understand the long-term benefits of being involved in building a company. And I think an example I like to use is Ryan Reynolds, who's a Hollywood actor who's in his 40s has showed a massive level of success with starting these companies.
Yeah, just remind me, he sold his last company, was it $3 billion?
Oh, I don't think it was that much. I thought it was, I could be getting it wrong. I thought it was $1.5 billion, but Mint Mobile. So he sold Mint Mobile, he sold Aviation Gym, but he's still involved in them. And I think I don't know the details on it, but that, and he bought a team called Wrexham over in Wales, and his documentary is incredible, and the team's doing amazing. They just won yesterday 3-0, and they're really trying to work on, working up in leagues, totally different story. But, he's a builder of companies and he's a builder of opportunity. And what I learned from him, and I learned from Driven Apps was you have to be a part of the company if you want it to be successful. You can't go do a deal with a major Hollywood star, a major athlete, and have their agents turning around saying, oh, well, he's required to do one post a month and one story. I'm like, it's done. And they're like, what do you mean we want to work with them? I'm like, it's over.
Yeah.
Like, that's not going to work. You're going to give them an amount of guaranteed cash. You're going to give them some equity in the company. They're going to come in with some BS content. You're going to be going through 5 or 6 levels of their team. It's not worth it. Like, you need people who are going to understand what growth is. You need people who are going to come into these businesses and understand what it's like to build these companies.
But that means you're got to sell the value and the mission of the company.
And you got to find the right person.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
You got to find the right person. What Ryan did, which I think was extraordinary, Ryan was on the phone with liquor distributors.
Wow.
And drivers who were delivering liquor.
Yeah.
Because he had a gin company and he was part of those meetings. He was an owner. He was treating that as if it was a mom and pop shop and he was building it up.
Yeah.
So that to me, that was just validation that this is what you need. And it's upsetting because I think a lot of these business owners are coming in now and they're trying to build companies. You have a lot of these private equity guys, a lot of these venture capitalists that are coming in. They're looking at things on paper, but they don't really understand, the right partner. Or they don't really understand, that aspect of the business. And it's not their job to. But I've seen more businesses fail than succeed because of that.
Oh, of course. And so now that was like around your 30s.
Yeah.
30s, yeah. And so what are we doing now?
So COVID hits.
Took down everyone in the fitness industry.
Yeah, it took down everyone in the fitness
mortar.
industry. So my 15-year lease, ironically, ended May 31st of 2020.
Oh, wow.
So March 16th, which was a Monday, Governor Cuomo said all gyms are shutting. And I already had this digital infrastructure going. A little bit weak. It wasn't like doing much because I didn't have a lot of time to put into it. Now, finally, it was like, okay, we have to figure something out. So what we went and did was my wife and I literally moved all of our furniture out of our living room and we shot a 4-week body weight training video. And I knew every publication was going to start reaching out to me, and they did. And they said, well, we'd like an ab workout, or this is tough times for people. They need stuff. They need content. And I'm like, okay. I'll give you 4 weeks with progressions with video. And they're like, why would you do that? I'm like, because I'm doing it. Great deal. So I collected 200,000 emails in 4 weeks, which is pretty good, right? So at that point, I then turned around to my 200,000 people and I said, guys, I'm going to offer a challenge for free. So I had all these people come into the challenge for free, and then they got to be coached by me. So in these challenges, they get a full workout with a video library. They get a weekly Zoom call with me for 2 hours. I bring on a monthly guest. They get my full nutrition plan. They get bonus workouts, all with video. And they get a morning, access to a private Facebook group where every morning I'm going on answering every question. I could have 200 questions. I'm answering all 200 questions on either video or in the comments section.
And this is for free so far.
This is for free.
Yeah.
So I went and I launched that. And then that's when Dino Brands was launched, because I had a bunch of companies that I partnered in. And I said, wow, this is great. I'm offering a lot of value. I can now sell this product and I can now start taking the businesses that I really believe in, meal delivery service companies like Daily Dose, On Running, companies I'm working with, and I can Halo Hydration, and I could start not pushing it on my people, but offering it to my community. And I think in 2 years, I built up a community of about 10,000 people.
Yeah.
And that's when Dino Brands was bought. So it became this whole umbrella of fitness, wellness, bringing on guests, adding value, products, supplements, all the stuff. And it became this little community to where we're on our third Doncon, which is, I rented an island off of Mexico. I have 150 coming in from over 30 different countries. So you start building this community, and it's something I'm just very passionate about. But I think, COVID really sped things up about 5 to 10 years. I think it forced people to think out of the box. So I had this whole brick and mortar business that I was going to restructure and re-sign my lease on. We had a successful business and we were thinking, and I had all these employees. So we got PPP money. I paid my landlord off for the remaining 3 months. I paid him in full. And we kept our trainers on for probably 6 months, kept my manager on for a year, kept my head cleaning guy on for about 6-7 months.
Yeah.
And by about September, Governor Cuomo announced that you were able to open at 33% capacity. And I just said, listen, I remember thinking one day, I was like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I have this whole other focus that I'm really passionate about. Again, we'll get into passion and purpose. And, I don't want to go back into brick and mortar. Like, that was a moment of my life. It's given me everything I have now, but I feel like I have this business that I want to focus on. So when I went back to negotiate with the landlord, I said, listen, I'll do this, but we're not going to survive at 33%, right? Whether they follow through with that or not. And he says, well, what do you recommend? And I offered a deal and he rejected the deal. And I said, okay, I'm out.
Yeah.
So I turned around and I called a buddy of mine and I said, do you want some equipment? And he comes in, he looks at it, he goes, I want all of it. I said, done. So he brought in 2 semi trucks, 36 hours, moved out a 15,000 square foot facility. I already sold the other place. That was gone. Someone came in and bought it. It was the easiest thing ever. And that's really when Dino Brands, we fully started, diving into that.
One thing that I'm loving about your story is the word entrepreneur and the word hunger. So in my line of work, similar thing happened, obviously not the exact same, but I was born and raised in a food industry business. My parents are Greek. Cool. So immigrants. Yeah.
Oh, I'm Greek. I'm Italian and Greek.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea. Yeah, do you speak Greek?
I don't. I mean, I know like Pikanis, but like 3/4 Italian, 1/4 Greek. I'm sorry, I had to.
Wow, no, that's incredible.
That's why I like you.
That's why we're vibing.
It's good stuff.
So immigrants from Cyprus went to Australia. So from a very young age, I was in the shop with them. My mum had me. 2 weeks later, she was at the shop. So I was in a bassinet. So I was watching them grind, 7 days a week. And that's
tough
all
business,
I knew.
Right?
Very tough business.
No one understands it.
And it was an entire family.
I'm like, be careful.
Yeah. Oh, no. And they really made it work. And, it's funny because I was taking things from their business and selling it at school at the age of 9. And I was making money, while I was going and actually my little business at school at age 9 got shut down because the lunch ladies at the canteen were like, that's not fair. Like we're not getting customers. So I was making money at a young age. But then you move, you grow up, and I went to university, and when you go and when you see doctors, right, and you think, why are they not all millionaires? Because I look at physicians and I look at scientists and I'm like, God, you are so intelligent. And this is what I was doing. I was working in neurology, and this is pre-COVID. I was like, oh my God, I felt like I knew so much. And then I also had, I believe, quote unquote, an entrepreneurial degree, just from growing up. And I'm like, if I could combine that with the knowledge of the human brain and fitness and performance, imagine what I could do. So during COVID, that's when I quit and started doing what I'm doing.
But passion and purpose. It's like you weren't really thinking about, I think this is not to interrupt, but I think this is a mistake people make. They're being dictated by, well, how much money can I make?
Yeah,
and you just kind of went after something that you really believed in, you loved, and you thought you can add value, and that's why you have a high level of success now.
Yeah, I was seeing people every day. So my main role is I'm just trying to pick up on cognitive decline and early onset Alzheimer's disease, and I was just doing it day in, and I was like, I just kept saying the exact same thing, and I'm like, my God, this is devastating. I'm like, imagine if I could just tell 100 people an hour instead of just doing one person seeing one patient every 15 minutes or every 30 minutes. Imagine if I could do this on a larger scale, because I really believe in this disease in terms of prevention. And that's what I was just like, why don't I just start, my podcast and YouTube and Instagram? And so that's how it really started. But what I find, and you can tell me what your view is on this, people go into fitness, okay, and they get excited, they love this fitness journey, they want to train other people, and that's great. But then they want to go from A, to Z in like a year. And I get asked often, Louisa, how did you build this podcast? So people are only starting to recognize it now. I'm like, look at the first time I posted. We've done over 250 episodes. The first episode was 2017. 2017. It's 2023. Yeah.
That's 6 years already.
Exactly.
God, where did the time go? It's crazy.
And people are like, so Louisa, how do I get like a top 50 podcast and I've only done 5? It's like, that's not how the game works.
Right. People put the cart before the horse a little bit. I think everyone wants this instant gratification, even with the human body. I tell people to really focus more on a feeling, focus on principles. Obviously, you need systems in place. I mean, you're not going to get here with just winging it and waking up in the morning and flipping a coin and saying, oh, what are we going to work on today? Like, you have to have that. But I really feel like, it does get a bit frustrating because you've got to go out there and do the things that most people aren't going to want to do. Like, you went through your education with me. Wow. Like someone could be looking at you right now, sitting in the chair saying, I want to be that. Do they want to go to school for 15 years? Do they want to go through the things? I think you said 15 years, right? Do they want to go? That's a lot of school.
Yeah.
All right. So do they want to do that? And the answer is normally no. That's why they don't find success. And for me, it's like I got to the point even in my business where I would just sit there and I would just give away all the information. Like, here, take it. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, this is what we did. This is what I do. And they're like, well, why are you so open to giving people this information? I'm like, because they still got to go and they got to spend those years. It's not going to happen in 3 to 5 years. They're going to have to put 15, 20, 25 years in like I did. And if they can do that and they can stick it out, then they deserve to be doing this, in my opinion. But there were so many lessons I learned in life from sweeping floors or cleaning toilets or dealing with the irate person at the such and such wedding in the Emerald Room that I was working at Crest Hollow Country Club in Woodbury. And it's like, all right, that person's irate. Like, what did I learn from it? Well, I learned how this person diffused the situation, and I'll never forget that. And I'll never forget how this manager took this drunk individual and was able to take this person from here to here. Valuable lessons.
Yeah.
Because now we're in the people business. Part of what we do is we have to adapt to a specific client. Someone walks through the door, you have to adapt. You had a patient come in. You got to adapt. They're in an emotional state. How are you going to handle them? You just got off a phone call with your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. Your dog is sick.
Oh.
How do you walk out and how do you flick that switch and how do you make it about them? And those were lessons that you don't learn in school.
No.
Those are lessons you got to learn from doing other things like being in the restaurant business, which your family was.
Yeah. And then you also learn what the value of $1 was. And my parents told me this, they used to say, you're never too good for a job. And I always believed that. And I'm like, okay, even at, when I came to New York, I was willing to do whatever it took just to be in this country. Obviously, I needed to come here. I wasn't blessed with the citizenship. I had to come here and really earn my stripes. And I knew nobody, I knew nothing, and I had to build it. So when people, it's very tough. And then you also have to convince somebody to give you a visa. So it's another,
That's a whole other ball game.
It's a whole other ball game.
Most people, but I think like the background you come from and what I come from, I would almost like my kids, I want them to go waiter or bartend or work in the service business. Like, I want them to do that because those are lessons that you're never going to take away from us.
So in your industry or in the fitness industry, would you say that that's classified, that's the industry you're in, health and fitness?
I call it health and fitness.
Yeah. What separates all these trainers? So you're working with celebrities, and are you also working with like high performance individuals?
You know what? I'm really not working with many people one-on-one anymore. Okay. I mean, I work with two very well-known actors because they're like family to me, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, and I always talk about them. They've done more for me in my career than I can ever tell you. I also work with Annie Hathaway. She's been a really good friend of mine.
Oh, wow.
For years. I'll help her husband out also, Adam. He's phenomenal. They're great people. That's really it. I mean, I'm not doing one-on-ones. I mean, I'll come in and I'll see them and I'll maybe tie it into one day, but 99% of my business is really focused on my digital space and developing that. But when I owned my clubs and when I was training 40 to 60 1-hour sessions a week, I would build a book up. I would hire another trainer. I would have to get that trainer busy. So I would pass my book off. So I've gotten rid of my book probably at least 10 to a dozen times. Like, I would build up a full book. I'd see a new person come in. I wouldn't want them to struggle. I would pass it off. And for me, landing clients just wasn't anything that was very difficult for me. I was never trying to sell them anything. I think the main lesson for me, that I would give to everyone else is just add value.
Yeah.
So when I would sit with that client, no matter what the goal was, my whole objective was to make sure they left that hour later feeling like there was a lot of value in that hour, that they felt better than they did before they came in. How do we take that person from looking at this as if it's a luxury to a necessity? So most people look at training like, oh, there's a cost on that. And I'm like, no, I want people to look at me as if I need this person. This person makes me better. They help me clean my side of the street. So mentally, I'm better for my family. I'm a better employer and employee, whatever it is. And that was my whole outlook. I was never focused on, what's my session rate? Session rate for me came down to supply and demand. I remember when I worked at Equinox in 99, I think I was one of the more higher producing trainers. I think I made 25 grand for the year.
Wow.
Right. And then at that point, you go to a one-on-one facility and you're making 85, 150, 250, 350. And it's like that number goes up and it becomes nice, but it was never really scalable. And if I was sick or traveling, I'm not making money. And that really bothered me. Like I wanted to build something that was about growth, not only about building my book. How do I grow for the future? And that's why I really became entrepreneurial, decided to get into gyms and get into the digital space, because I like building things. I like opportunity, and I like helping people out in the masses. The one-on-one thing, it's great. But a lot of times one person is only benefiting from that.
So my, the reason we started neuroathletics coaching certificate, that's a tongue twister, the NAC course.
I can't say that. Don't ask me to say that.
It came because I was going to Equinox, right? And, back in when I first came here, 2017, 2018, I was looking at all these trainers and, they would talk to me. They're like, hi, you're a new member. Would you like to do our 45-minute assessment?
Push.
And I thought, what are you doing exactly? And I would ask them questions because they didn't know anything about my background, right? I would ask them, I'm like, so what's this working and why? And they haven't even done what you learn, when you're dealing with patients is you learn a patient history, which you go into their entire history to find out maybe what's happening. They never took that. They just said, okay, so what are your goals? And it's like, okay, well, for me, it's like, okay, I want to lose 10 pounds. They never discussed whether, you should go and do a DEXA scan. So they didn't, what I was looking at them, I'm like, how do you know, like, first of all, what's fat, what's muscle? And okay, let's do that. Let's go through the stages of like what you need to know. But then when we were training, I was like, there is something really wrong here with how you're training me, even your knowledge. And what I was thinking is, why are these trainers going out and how are they able to be certified with just a 2-day certificate?
That's what bothers me probably most. I mean, if you think about it, doctors have to go in for medical degrees, and what is that, 4 years, right? It's depending on the degree, but the fact that a coach can go and get a certificate in 2 days
and claim to fix someone's health and life.
And you know what? Put them in, like, I've seen some coaches put people in some really dangerous positions. Like you've got their health, in the palm of their hands. And that to me is very dangerous. Yeah.
And so I was looking at them, and then in 2019, my father had a stroke, and it was,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. And so, after that, he's lost some function in his left leg and his left arm. So I flew to Australia and I got him a personal trainer. And I stayed there. They ended up kicking me out of the gym because I got really upset. I'm like, what are you doing? And so I look at these people and I look at my father who's had a stroke, which is a very big thing. I'm like, why am I trusting my mum now and my dad to go to this man who actually has only trained for 2 days and done it? And so I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that personal trainers have an extremely important role in society. They're looking after someone's health, and health is everything. I think they should all have a degree of some sort.
I couldn't agree with you anymore. Even when I became certified for the first time, I mean, it could have been where I just went in for a national 2-day certification. When I got certified, actually, I don't even remember the certification course I've taken because I probably went on to get 50 certifications. I maintain a couple of them just to maintain them. It's always interesting with the continuing education I do, and you apply the CECs, but is it necessary at me right now? It's not, but I have it. But I remember the first course I took, it was like a 7 or 8 month course. I was really impressed with it. It was like classroom, hands-on. And to this day, I've never really seen something that extensive. Everything's in 2 or 3 days. Most of it's continuing education. You need experience. When you're looking for a coach, you need to find someone who's done an internship program, a mentorship program. You'd like to find someone with a degree in exercise phys or exercise science. I think it's beneficial. It's not necessary. Some of the best coaches I know on the planet don't have that. But I think there's a lot of things that now would benefit them. And trainers now are they're like, a lot of coaches that I know now are doing a hell of a lot better than a lot of these finance guys. Like I know,
exactly.
and they're like, we are in an industry now where we can be very successful, and where it was kind of looked at in the past, like, oh, you're a trainer, like, ha ha ha.
Yeah,
like, no,
I am a trainer.
Yeah. It's like, okay, like we're like, these coaches now are doing very well, and that's fantastic. That makes me happy because I think now people are going to realize that we need to take this a little bit more seriously. This isn't a weekend job to make a little extra money while I'm trying to pursue my acting career. Yeah,
absolutely. And one of the things that I love most is you can go to your trainer and not just work on your health and your mindset. I always say that a lot. You're probably a mindset coach when you're talking to these people. You're doing everything as well.
Yeah.
But it's also time management, because sometimes for me, I don't want to have to go into the gym and think like I've got so much going on. I would just love to just work with someone qualified. Yeah, I just like, just tell me what to do.
You know what you're doing, but you want to show up and you want to surrender. I mean, I've done that in the past, like Jordan Shallow, the muscle doc, like Jordan's written me programs. I've done them. They've been very beneficial. He's amazing. One of the smarter guys in our industry. And I think there's a nice element to that when you're working with a coach where you can kind of go and it's mindless. You don't have to think, maybe gets you out of your comfort zone a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that's the problem in the coaching world right now. I think a lot of these, I'm seeing it at a lot of the clubs. Corporate becomes very transactional. So I won't mention specific clubs' names, but these clubs are turning around and you have the upper office, which are normally business people, they understand structure. Very, very seldom do you see like a trainer who ends up becoming like the CEO of Equinox. Like it doesn't always work out that way. But what you end up seeing is that they start making very business-like decisions and then they start influencing the coaching to make business-like decisions, which I understand. I ran clubs for 15 years. I get the business end of it. I understand the importance of covering your overhead. But the lifeline of the club is the coach.
Repeat business, yeah.
Yeah, it is the coach. Like the coach is going to be in front of the clients more than anyone at that club, more than the GM, more than the CEO, more than the cleaning staff. The coach is the person who's establishing that relationship. And it's bizarre to me how these clubs are really devaluing the trainers and the turnover is terrible. Like if you're going to go, like if someone asks me, what should I do? I want to become a coach. I'm like, great. Yes, go get a national certification. You should have that. Then you need to go work at a big box gym. Well, what should I be making?
What's a big box gym?
Like a Crunch, an Equinox, a New York Sport Club, like, whatever. Like I would find something with a decent training department where the head coach, the fitness, the director of fitness is going to put you through a continuing education program. And then you need to take internship programs. You need to continue your education. I would take a hard style course. I would go take TPI, even if you're not a golf fitness instructor, but we're learning from a person like Greg Rose, learning from a Mike Boyle, who's the godfather of strength and conditioning. He's got a phenomenal certification, learning FMS, getting a functional movement screening. These are things that I think these coaches need. And I would spend some time at a big box club for a year or so, max. And at that point, go out and be entrepreneurial. Go work on a one-on-one facility.
And
go
just put
home
all
to
your
home.
heart into it.
Yeah, and then you got to start figuring out at that time what are those next steps. Unless you're one of these people who want to be in a gym working for 10 to 15 years. If you're one of these people and it makes you happy, God bless you. But that just wasn't me. I wanted to see what's that next step for me. How do I find that level of passion and purpose? How do I keep my, how do I stay intrigued and how do I be excited about what I do every day?
So I'm guessing that a lot of the people listening right now are probably wondering like what you actually do with a client. And you mentioned FMS, functional, what was it?
Functional movements, it's just a
Movement
tool.
okay.
It's FMS is a tool that was created by Lee Burton and Gray Cook.
Okay.
Years ago, it was a very simple screening that coaches could put their clients through. And I think it would indicate some red flags. So if at my club, we put people through this screening, if I saw any red flags, I can then go to my team of medical, which we had at the time, 3 PTs, always on site.
So for example, like a bench press, squat, deadlift.
Like a toe touch.
Oh, wow.
Or like something
Very
simple, like something simple, or like an overhead deep squat.
Okay.
Right. Just with no weight, all body weight stuff, or a specific push-up test. If we saw the core break or something happen in there, or a rotary stability test. So we would look at these screens, and if there were red flags in there, or they scored like a 1 or less, like a 0, I would then bring my medical out. And I'd say, can you take a look? What do you want to do? And then they run them through an SFMA, which is another form of screening. And then at that point, we would really gain all this data. And then when building the program, we can make it very purposeful.
Yes.
Which is kind of ironic because when people call me and they're like, oh, we want so-and-so's program or Blake Lively's program. I'm like, okay, but that's Blake's program.
It's very individualized.
It's very individualized. Like I can give it to you, I can sell it, but you might need... there might be like Ryan Reynolds might be doing a reach back because he needs more thoracic rotation, and a female might be doing that where she has perfect thoracic rotation. So why is she going to do a reach back or an open book? Like she won't need it.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to focus more on grip strength or hanging from a pull-up bar to develop more stability, right? Rather than just flexibility. I always say flexibility plus stability equals mobility. So I think these screens would really give us And like you said, the actual written screening portion of it, what's your health history like?
Yeah.
What do you feel worked for you? What didn't work for you? And then when you gain all this information and you understand where are they trying to go, which is really something, especially working with Hollywood stars, every one of them would sit with me and they'd be like, this is what we need to create over the next 6 months or the next year. And I would see anything from, Dave Harbour sitting with me and pulling up an Olympic shot putter and saying, I need to look like that, to someone saying like, I need to look like Brad Pitt in Fight Club. I mean, or someone saying, I need to get fat for a role. I mean, there's all different types of very unusual focuses there. But I think the screening portion of it gives us that data. Then you could build the program around that. And then the program becomes purposeful. If you see that the person has no ability to externally rotate the shoulders or no thoracic extension, I probably don't want to go overhead with them, right? Like
Interesting.
maybe we do something on a high incline. Maybe we put them in, maybe we have them press off of a landmine, something that's still going to hit that delt, still going to hit that tricep, but not put them in a compromising position where we're going to cause more damage to the body. And that's training.
Do you know whose physique that I'm very interested in a professional way?
Okay.
Chris Hemsworth.
Oh, he's phenomenal.
He's just like, you look at him and you're like, what? Who's his trainer? What
Chris,
did he
I was
do?
talking about him the other day. I think he's 6. I mean, listen, at the end of the day,
He's a beast.
He's a beast. But at the end of the day, and I say this about Ryan Reynolds, who's got an incredible physique, Hugh Jackman that I worked with for Wolverine. I've worked with some pretty impressive people. We help guide them and get them from point A to point B, but it wasn't like Chris always had a good physique on him. Chris's trainer, great coach, probably put him in a good direction to be able to make some really good decisions. But like Chris is Chris. You know what I'm saying? And like sometimes does genetics have something to do with it? It does, but there's also hard work and there's also some really good instruction that comes from the coach that's going to allow Chris to be very successful. But you're in good company there because he's an impressive guy.
Yeah. So do you just take on the role of just exercise? But do you also take on nutrition? Do you give guidance on sleep?
Exercise is the easy part.
Yeah.
Once you get that screening and you develop that template, you've got to be willing to deviate from that template. Because if you're on a plane from Australia and it's delayed and you're dehydrated and you're getting there on a Monday morning, maybe you had a couple of cocktails on the plane the night before, like we're not going for a max effort pull off the floor. Like there's things that have to change a little bit. So I think it's educating the client and letting them understand that the exercise is very important. Don't get me wrong. But if your digestion's not in a good spot, if you're not hydrating, if you don't have good sleep quality, oh my God. Like I helped a woman out yesterday who I helped out. She just lost her brother. She just lost her 2 dogs. Like she's in a really terrible place. She gained 50 pounds and she was really in a depressed place. And, I got on to help her out. And I went through really 6 non-scale victories where I said, if you can do this, I think we're going to be in a really good place. And I'll try and remember, but NSV number 1 was steps. So we wanted to get our steps up to a minimum of 7,500. I said 10,000 and over would be great, but just make sure that 7,500 seems to be a good gauge to be in, and we can build from there. Number 2 would be hydration. Right, I wanted her to get half her body weight in ounces, just a range, but it was a lot better than where she was. NSV number 3 was turning around and removing processed foods from 7 days a week, where I was allowing her 1 day a week. So last week, I think she did well with 4 days, but she was eating a lot of fast food. So I said, listen, let's try and cut the processed foods down to 1 day a week. We're going to turn around and we're going to start trying to be consistent with our exercise. We're going to follow my nutrition plan, which, by the way, isn't the end goal. It was, I think 3 days, 3 days a week of training, 2 days a week of like a structured cardio. That's it. That on top of getting her steps in was going to be magic. And I said, with improving those areas, we're going to have the improvement of sleep. Like once you improve those 5 areas, like you'll notice over time, maybe not instantaneously, that sleep will improve. I said, and let's just start focusing on those 6 main things. And if we could focus on those things, I think we're going to be in a really good place. If you could take those 6 things and focus on 1 a month, could you imagine fixing 6 of those things over 6 months? Like most people would say, well, that's a long time. The mistake is, I think on day 1, everyone's trying to fix those 6 things. Now, if you're type A, you could probably do it. You can do it. I could do it. It would probably come easy to us. But the reality is that sometimes we need to retrain ourselves. Getting those 3 meals a day in, she was never eating breakfast. So
Okay.
she was having a light lunch, like a salad. She wasn't
No
having
protein.
no real protein, sometimes protein, sometimes not. And then dinner was coming and she's like, why am I eating everything? I'm like, your blood sugar level's off. Like if we made like the success is going to come down to blood sugar because if we can maintain it, front load our calories a little bit more, we'll be better in the evening. But you're not just going to wake up one day from fasting and be like, oh, I'm hungry. And when I hear people say, oh, well, I'm not hungry in the morning, I'm like, of course you're not. You haven't had breakfast in 5 years. We got to start. Well, what should I have? What can we start with? Can we start with the Greek yogurt? Well, it's dairy. Is that okay? It's okay for you. You said you liked it. Maybe a protein shake with some berries in it.
Yeah.
Okay, is that enough? Probably not in the long run, but let's start working our way up. And I've really noticed that once we start getting people to their maintenance level of calories or their total daily energy expenditure, it could take months.
Yeah.
But when we get them there, their body composition drastically improves. But you're not going to take someone who's consuming 1,400 calories a day and they're like, oh, I want to lose weight. And you're like, okay, let's drop to 1,200. Like it doesn't work that way. Like we all have a maintenance level of calories. And if we're in a deficit all the time, I think it's dangerous. I think it's irresponsible. And when coaches are out there and they're like, well, you need to be in a deficit to change your body composition, that's false. You don't. And they're finding out now that you don't. We need to consume a sufficient amount of protein. We need to have whole foods, vegetables, fruits, slow burning carbohydrates. And I believe it depends on the individual. As you know, certain individuals might need to be more of a fat adapted diet. I'm not saying for everyone, but generally, like carbs are energy, fats are energy. Calories are energy. We need energy. So when people are in such a deficit all the time, the human body's smart. It starts saying to itself, I don't have enough energy in the body. I got to slow down. I want to sit on the couch. I want to lay in bed. My mood's going to drop. My sleep quality is going to drop and all these things.
And you can't lift.
And you can't lift. And you know what? Oh, I'd rather take the elevator.
Yeah.
And I've worked with people. I've worked with a woman who's 900 pounds who couldn't walk. I've worked with a guy who came to me in May who was 525 pounds. They were about to check him into hospice. He couldn't walk 400 to 600 steps a day. And now he's getting between 38 and 42,000 steps a week.
Wow.
He removed the canes. He's lost about 100 pounds. He's making better food choices. Is he where I want him to be in the long run? No, he's not. But we're moving in the right direction. So I think the problem is that people will look at someone like myself, or they'll read Chris Hemsworth's program and they're like, I have to do that. And they try and jump into it and then they're not successful because they're not accustomed to doing stuff like that yet.
Yeah. I always say to start very lightly.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think is stopping people, like I think to myself, why are people still having trouble understanding how to lose fat and gain muscle with the amount of free information out there and education? So I think that there is an adherence problem because, even I have that. I know everyone has an adherence problem, but is there also an education problem?
Yeah.
But we've got so much free education. There's
we have
YouTube,
a lot of free, but there's so much
podcasts.
conflicting advice. And the crazy thing
Who do I
about
believe?
there's not like this Bible on the shelf, right? There's not this one manual where you're like, oh, go grab the encyclopedia of burning body fat. Like it's not like that doesn't exist because we all know that or you and I know that there's so many different formulas. And I think that's what confuses people is everyone wants to give their advice on what works for them. Or suddenly this influencer's on Instagram and he's ripped and he looks great. And he's like, oh my God, I eat 2 meals a day and I fast all day and I feel great and look at me. And then suddenly people are like, well, that's what I have to do.
Yeah.
They haven't earned the right to do that yet. I feel like fasting is a very beneficial tool. I think there's incredible science behind it. I think it also needs to be earned because a lot of people are fasting to rebound from a poor night of eating, right? Or a lot of people fast because they want to go out and eat hamburgers and drink vodka. Like, well, it doesn't really work that way. Nutrition is how I like to detoxify people. Yeah. When someone comes back from a bad trip, am I going to have them fast or am I going to have them eat whole foods? Am I going to have them sweat a little bit? Maybe a sauna, hydration. These things are what gets the body to detoxify. And these things are what allows the body. I want the body to be powerful.
Yeah.
In the long term, I don't feel like fasting is going to enable an athlete to be powerful. There's a lot of great benefit to it. From a brain function standpoint, I'm sure you can go into more detail than I can, but I think it needs to be earned.
Yeah, 100%. And I also think that there is something to say about really understanding that everyone is different. Your DNA, does matter to an extent, but also things like, what's your VO2 max? Oh, yeah. I measure that. What do you use?
Do you use a treadmill or do you use a bike?
So my last one, I used a bike.
Right.
And my client got so so upset. He's
Right.
like, I could have gotten more if it was on a treadmill. It's like, okay, so I use bike and treadmill, but when you use a bike, you have to use watts.
Oh my
It's
God.
hard. You start on
My bike was significantly worse than
Yeah.
my I used a curved treadmill.
Yeah.
And
Oh, you use the curve?
yeah.
See, that's
but
why.
I've also used a Woodway. I'm sorry. I've used a curved treadmill. I used a Woodway, which I found out was probably a better way to do. 'Cause
Woodway is better. Yeah.
Yes, and then and I used which bike did I use? It might have been a Kaiser.
Okay.
And that
We used Kaiser too.
ripped my legs up. And that was the factor. My VO2 actually dropped, I think, like 8 to 10 actual points. I think I was closer to 60 on the treadmill. And I think on the bike, I was probably 48.
Wow.
It was
but
pretty significant.
60 on a treadmill
Yeah.
for your VO2 max.
Yeah.
That's literally because I was looking at the table yesterday.
Yeah.
That's like in the elite category.
Yeah, but I'm also a bigger guy. I have a friend of mine that did like Dave Kilgore for On Running. I think did like an 87. I mean, he also runs ultras and he's a beast. But
Well, yeah.
I'm carrying 212 pounds
Yeah.
around. It's a little harder for me. And the mask gets really difficult.
It's
and you can't
terrible.
breathe. Yeah, it's tough.
So some of the best ones are the Tour de France guys.
Oh, incredible.
You know,
Incredible.
but when it comes to longevity, because that's one of the things that we focus on, brain health, longevity, what we say is you really want a big base. That's like zone 2. You really want to be able to pedal the bike or run for long periods of time. And that's going to build up a base level of fitness. And the way I describe it is cardiac remodeling, because your muscles around your heart, the ventricles, they've got muscles, you know, your heart and these ventricles. And for every pump, you want to be able to shoot more blood out with every pump. And that's what's going to create better health in the long run. So that's the base. But then you also need a peak, which is your VO2 max. And so we program based on both. We do VO2 max sessions and we also program like zone 2 cardio work just to get that, base
I think
structure.
zone 2 is a great, very safe, very
It's
universal. It's I actually enjoy it. I just enjoy it. I mean, being in that range, and the ranges are obviously going to change according to the individual, but if it's a 120 to 150, 124 to 144, those obviously will vary, but like I think around that 130, 135 range for most people, I'm finding they're falling in that zone 2. I don't know your opinion on it, but I think it's actually kind of enjoyable. I don't know. Sometimes I get on the stairs and just put on like a level 10 and just no arms and put my music on and I'll just go for 30 to 45 minutes type of thing. And
on level 10 on the stair, that's your zone 2? Like my zone 2 on stairs is like level 4.
Yeah, I don't know. I was probably more of a runner growing up, and I think I really got into more of the strength and hypertrophy. I think I had a coach in college that just thought distance running, 3 to 5 mile time runs were great. So I ran a 452 mile back in college at like 219 pounds. Like I could run. My running since then has really diminished because I'm not running like that anymore, and I'm not running with that frequency. But I enjoy it. I think zone 2 for me is like a way for me to go out. It's mindless.
Yeah.
It's just like go, you know?
Okay. So let's do a case scenario here. Treat me as if I'm a 50-year-old woman and I'm scared to lift weights, but I've heard that weights may help me with burning more fat. And I also heard that muscle and strength is good as I age, but I'm too scared to lift weights. Yeah.
And I think we can get into it. For me, it's resistance. Like, what is my main goal? It's to create a level of resistance. And we could still do that with cables, right? Where they might be a little bit more upright, or you could probably still do that with bands, right? It might be a little bit more difficult with someone, new to it. I also think machines can be very valuable for someone who's really nervous. And I think going in and showing them the safety, showing them how it's guided on the specific path, showing them it's going to be much easier to be successful in the beginning will still create that hypertrophic response. Yeah. I don't sleep on that sort of thing. I know the benefit from it. But I think if someone's really nervous about it, getting them underneath a bar, putting them into a position where even a leg press where the weight's coming down on them, why? Like, we could set things up that they're going to get a really good response from that might be a bit less intrusive. So maybe like for a free weight, we could start them with maybe a goblet squat, or maybe a vertical knee tibia split squat with no weight. Like, if they're not used to doing resistance training, trust me, with no weight, they're going to feel that. Like, their legs are going to be burning at 8 to 10 reps. So granted, they're able to go through that screening and I'm not seeing any red flags. I'm going to teach them how to do some pretty basic movements, maybe an incline push-up, maybe if they're really freaked out or if they're like, oh, this is making me really nervous, I could bring them over to a machine and get them on a chest press, or I could get them on a shoulder press, just something to keep them moving. And I think taking that minimalistic approach early on with someone who's really scared is the best way to do it. My goal is to have them leave the session, go, that's it?
Yeah.
But we can keep going. And I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, but you did everything I wanted you to do today.
Okay.
So let's do this. Like, we're coming back in 2 days? Awesome. All right, but now I think you know the intensity. And, well, are we going to go harder? We will in the future. But you really kind of blew me out of the water today. I'm very happy with what I have and what you've given me. So let's build from that. And I think that's how you build confidence. I had a guy come into me 20 years ago. That's a lie. It was 17 years ago when I opened my club. And he said, I want to work with TRX. And I was like, it was right when TRX came out. So you can do the math. Maybe I'm getting the timeline wrong, but I'm like, okay, TRX. It's a suspension trainer. Like, great. So he's like, I want to show me some TRX stuff. So I brought him in. He's like, I don't want to lift weights. I don't want to do kettlebell work. I don't want to do all this other stuff. I'm like, fine. So we started the workout out. I gave him what he wanted. It was body weight training. It was TRX. He built some trust. Turned around to me 3 to 4 weeks later. He goes, well, I love what you showed me. What else you got for me? And that to me was the magic. It was like, all right, you want to think outside the box a little bit? Can I show you some stuff that I like to do personally? I'm in your corner. I'd love to do it. I built that trust with him, right? And I think that's what it's about. You got to build that trust with that client. Stop going to your playbook and pulling out the things that work for you.
Yeah.
Figure out a way to go into your toolbox and say, what can we apply to this person that's going to be effective, safe, and guess what? Enjoyable.
Yeah.
They got to be able to enjoy it.
And then, okay, what about the reverse situation? How long does it take to build, let's say, 8 pounds of muscle?
I don't know. I mean, it's really, it's funny that you threw that number at me because I have an overall winner for my challenge every year. And I have this woman, I could talk about her name. Her name's Olivia. She's from Belgium. She won my challenge for the year. But if you looked at her DEXA scan, if you looked at her on a scale, it would have showed that she gained 1 kilo.
Okay.
But her whole body composition changed. So when we put her on the DEXA, it showed us that she lost 8 pounds of fat and gained 9 pounds of muscle in that year, which I thought was extraordinary.
Oh, wow.
Extraordinary.
That's huge.
Huge. I always say, if you can gain 5 to 10 pounds of natural muscle a year, that's extraordinary. I'm super happy with that. But if we just used a scale, she would have seen that she only gained 1 kilo and she would have been all pissed off at me. So the fact that we had something quantifiable, I think was really beneficial. I think the fact that she felt amazing compared to how she did early in the year. She looked incredible. She did 2 bathing suit pictures, which my people rarely do. But we were able to now justify through non-scale victories and actually a nice DEXA victory right there. So that for her took a year, and I thought that was fast. I thought that was really fast. So I think it depends on the individual.
But to do that, you have to be training hard.
You got to be training hard, and you got to be doing the other things.
Okay.
You got to be sleeping. You got to be, focused on your nutrition. You got to be.
It all matters.
Yeah, it all matters. It's not like people, what supplements should I take? I'm like, you know what? Like, I sell supplements, but like from what I'm hearing right now, like, save your money. Like, unless it's a multivitamin, a fish oil, vitamin D, things that you might need to make your system more powerful. Like, spending all your money on this stuff may not be necessary right now. Like, if you're telling me, well, I don't have money, I have money for either supplements, or I don't have enough money for supplements, what should I take? I'm like, put your money into food quality. Like, let's just focus more on the food and let's focus on being successful. Well, my vitamin D is low. Well, let's get more vitamin D. Like, let's supplement.
Very cheap, easy to do.
Easy. So it depends.
Yeah. Okay. So right now you're going to be doing this thing called Doncaldino.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But is your name, what's your full name?
Don.
It's
not Donald.
I was going to say, is it Donald?
No, everyone thinks it's Donald.
That's not a Greek name.
No, it's not. But my grandma's maiden name was Skandalous.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So, and then she married her husband, Joe Monti, Monti. He was an Italian. She was a full 100% Italian, Greek.
Yeah.
He was 100% Italian from Ischia. I think she was from Mykonos. And,
wow.
Yeah, which is, I think was probably a little.
That's a bit of a party island.
Yeah, a little bit, right? But this is, this would have been 100 years ago at this point.
I've never met anyone that said they're from Mykonos.
Yeah, so she was. So they got married, which made my mom 50-50, and then my dad was 100% Italian. So turns out, roughly 3/4 Italian, 1/4 Greek.
So you're doing Doncaldino.
Yeah.
And you also got an online community.
I do.
Okay, so because a lot of people listening may be like, I want to do this challenge.
Oh, it'd be awesome. I'd love to have everyone. The challenges are great. They go off the first Monday of every month.
Okay.
So the first Monday of every month, you can go to Donsaladino.
So it's like a 1 month.
It's a 1 month thing. It's not you get a 4-week workout. You get everything. You get access to me 5 days a week. So that's what I like about it.
Wow.
I sell programs globally.
Yeah.
Does very well for us. And it's definitely more of the scalable model.
Yeah.
The reason why I have this community is because it's never always here's the program, best of luck to you. So I like the fact when people have questions throughout the month that they can come on to the challenge and they can ask me directly and we can help them figure out the puzzle. I don't care if it's like, well, I have a lot of times I'll get medical questions and I'm like, guys, I'm not a medical, but I have the right person for you to ask.
Yeah.
Dr. Gabrielle Line would be one of them. Dr. Dwayne Jackson would be another one, right? So I have, once people start talking about diabetes or, PCOS or other things that I feel like need to be looked at a little bit more deeply, I want them working with the medical. So I can at least open doors for them. I kind of have a deal with all the people I work with. I'm like, listen, anyone contacts you from my group, just give them 10 minutes, just to at least have a consult. And then if they decide to work with you, fantastic. And they've all been great with it. But yeah, donsaladino.com and come join a challenge. And then DonCon is going to be my 3rd annual retreat. I hosted the first one in Costa Rica, which we had 35 people. And I was like, oh my God, are we going to fill out 35 people? Because getting that type of volume is tough. Sold out in 2 hours. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then the next year, my wife came up with she's my business partner. She came up with the idea to rent an island off of Mexico. And I was
What is this island? How do you just rent an island?
It's crazy. So it's a boat ride away from Puerto Vallarta. So you land in Puerto Vallarta in Mexico. You got to take about a 30-minute boat ride. And it brings you to this secluded area it's kind of like an island. You can't really get to it unless you get to a boat, but you could access it from land. It's just too difficult. So I had 70 people come in last year from about 15 different countries. And on the first day, we had about 50 inquiries because everyone was posting about it. It's incredible. I mean, you've got morning yoga with Robin Meeks, who's one of our challengers, who comes in and she teaches yoga first thing in the morning. And then I teach 2 classes in a row, which, we'll split the classes up into 2 groups.
Like fitness, strength.
Fitness, body weight. Yeah. And it's all structured differently every day, which is a lot of fun. And there's different fitness levels there. There's people who are struggling to get up the stairs and there's people who are in great shape. But all in all, we all work together and I'm going around coaching. So we have about 35 people a class. I'll have one class start at 8 o'clock, ends at 8:45. The next class comes in 9 to 9:45. Breakfast is at 10 o'clock. By 10:45, Coach Adam Ross, who's our nutritionist, comes in with me and we do a nutrition talk for about 45 minutes to an hour. At that point, there's afternoon activities. You can stay on the beach, cold plunges, saunas, swim in the pool, swim in the ocean.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, or you can go jump off rock cliffs, or you can do zip lining.
Get a massage.
Yeah. It's just, and the food is, the thing I love the most is the food. It's all farm to table.
Wow.
It's all plant strong, but they do animal proteins. They actually won't do beef there, but they'll do, fish that's caught right from the water there. It's all wild, and the chicken, the turkey, everything is like the highest quality. So you eat really good. And then at night, everyone hangs out and, we'll do karaoke. We have fun. People, if they want to pass out, they pass out. But having those type of group, having that type of community for me has been amazing.
Wow, that sounds like my dream. And when's this one taking place? The Mexico one?
We'll do 2 weeks. It's like whenever it starts, like the last day or 2 of June to like July 13th. I'm drawing a blank on the dates, but all the details are on donsaladino.com.
And we'll link that below. Don, thank you so much for being part of the Neuro Experience podcast.
Amazing. Thank you.